Paralysis is not permanent. I'm going to say that again because I need you to actually hear it. Paralysis is not permanent. I want you to meet some people. These are real patients in physical rehab right now in Edmonton, Alberta. This is Ashton. In 2022, he was involved in a motor vehicle collision that left him with a traumatic brain injury that drastically changed his life. He spent 2 months in a coma, and doctors told his mother that if he survives, he will never be the same. At 22 years old, the hospital eventually sent him to the long-term care facility because there was nothing more that they could do for him. At 22 years old. In this video, a trainer is asking Ashton to sit up unassisted. He can't keep his head straight, can't use his hands, and he can barely balance. This is Ashton today, laying flat on his back, doing a full sit-up with his head straight, with minimal assistance from the trainer. Yes, thank you. He deserves that. Now, he is stronger, and he fully believes in his ability to recover. Meet Cole. He had a stroke at birth. He has cerebral palsy, and he's paralyzed on his left side, as you can see in this video. He's 11 now, but in this clip he was 5 years old, and his doctors told his mom that he would never walk. Well, 6 years later, that's Cole, walking unassisted. Now he walks around the house by himself, and his mom said this is the freedom that he's been craving for his whole life. And to be honest, this is the first time his mom has a moment to herself too. So some of you might be thinking, what's my story? Well, let me tell you. It was Friday the 13th of July of 2012, and yes, Friday the 13th. I'm at a resort for my friend stay at, and out of nowhere, I feel the worst pain I've ever felt in my low back. I lasted a few minutes, and then I couldn't move my right leg. A few minutes later, my left leg went prickly from my hip to my toes in a whoosh motion. Oops. Sorry. And I was left paralyzed from the waist down within 10 minutes. I received a misdiagnosis of conversion disorder. That's when trauma tells your brain to tell your body to shut down. A couple of neurologists even told me that I'd be walking into their offices in a few months. And for a while, I really hoped that they were right, because if it was in my head, then at least I could think my way out of it. Then I got the real diagnosis: transverse myelitis, a lesion in my spinal cord, blocking the signals from my brain to my body. It's caused by the Epstein-Barr virus, which decided to attack my spinal cord instead of literally anything else in my body. It could have attacked my fat cells or something more beneficial to me, but this is how life goes. I expected that answer to bring me relief, but instead it actually broke me, because it meant the solution wasn't psychology, and the standard prognosis for a full recovery was much less promising. Now, before we go any further, I'd like all of you to do something for me, please. If you are able, please raise your hand. And now put it down. And again, if you're able, please raise your hand. Now let me ask you, why'd you do that? You just took orders from a woman in a wheelchair that you just met. You just complied. That is learned obedience, and it lives in all of us. Now imagine a doctor, someone with letters after their name, a white coat, an iPad in their hand. They look at you and they say, you'll never walk. You'll never use your hands again. You'll never play sports. You'll never have sex. You'll never pee on your own. You'll never poop on your own. You believe them. Of course you do. That's the most dangerous kind of paralysis. The kind that lives in what we've been told to accept. The patients in those videos, they were told some version of that list also. The system decided that their paralysis was permanent, and you watched them prove the system wrong with your own eyes. So how does the system get it so wrong so often? Let me tell you about the time I went to go get my IUD replaced at a women's clinic. The doctor walked in. She doesn't look at me. She's holding her iPad, and she says, "Hi. Okay, you have transverse myelitis. Okay, so you can't feel anything, and you can't move anything." I said, "Hi, I'm a person sitting right in front of you, and yes, I have transverse myelitis, but I can feel and move almost everything. The only thing I can't feel is hot, cold, and pain." "Oh, okay, why don't you start by telling me your limitations?" I was spicy that day, so I decided to teach this lady a lesson. I said, "Sure, I'd be happy to tell you. Why don't you tell me yours first?" "Go ahead. Why don't you tell me all the things that you can't do?" Silence. She had no answer. Because nobody walks into a room and leads with what they can't do except us. Every conversation, every healthcare appointment, every form begins with, "Tell me your limitations." And then we wonder why people with disabilities feel so small. What if, just once, somebody asked about our potential, about what we want to do, about what we can do? Here's the wild part. Our brain is actually built for potential. Our brain is not fixed. It is not finished. And this is not true just for people with disabilities. It's true for every single person in this room and on this earth. For most of medical history, scientists believed the opposite. They thought that once you hit adulthood, your brain was done. Then, in 1958, a man named Pedro had a massive stroke. He was paralyzed on one side, he couldn't speak, and the medical world wrote him off. His two sons refused to accept that. They retrained his brain and his body day after day for years. He recovered so completely that he went back to work as a teacher. One of those sons became a neuroscientist, Paul Baccarita. He proved in a lab that the adult brain can rewire itself. That was in the 60s, and this discovery now has a name: neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, to learn, adapt, and recover. And here's the part that nobody tells you. You don't need a disability to learn how to use it. Every time you do something unfamiliar or uncomfortable, you're building new neural pathways. And that's not self-help fluff, that's neuroscience. If you brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand, you will feel your brain fighting you. That fight is your brain growing. You don't need a prescription to rewire your brain. You need repetition, you need discomfort, and most importantly, you need to believe that it is possible. Now, when I talk about recovery, I'm not telling you that every single person with a spinal cord injury is going to walk out of treatment and run a marathon. Recovery looks different for everybody. For some, it's movement, for some, it's sensation, or maybe it's getting back that one function that they were told would be gone forever. Recovery priorities also look different for every person too. Walking is a massive goal for many, but for others, that list looks completely different. Hand function, bowel and bladder function, sexual function. These are not small things. My hands, these give me independence. These are dignity, these are intimacy. For all of these people though, it increases their confidence, which by proxy increases their quality of life. Recovery is not a finish line, it's a direction. The system measures recovery by whether you'll walk again. But what if we measured recovery by how you live? Another thing, recovery isn't linear. There's progression and there's regression. That's part of it, but we show up anyways. That's resilience. That's what recovery actually looks like. Now let me give you some numbers. Right now, 86,000 Canadians are living with a spinal cord injury. Nearly half of those new injuries in Canada are non-traumatic. That means they stem from an internal source, a virus, a disease, an infection. And by 2030, that number could top 120,000 people. Here's a stat that I believe we actually have the ability to change. 5 years after a spinal cord injury, fewer than 40% of people are working. Not because they don't want to, or that they don't have the skills. It's because they were told, mainly by doctors, that it would be easier to go on income support than to go back to work. Now for some, income support is the right call, absolutely. But for many others, people who want to work, want to provide for their families, want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, the system stops showing up for them long before they stop showing up for themselves. It is the system that handed them a ceiling and called it a prognosis. Now there's two ways the world has looked at disability. The medical model says, you are the problem. You need to be fixed. It hands you a prognosis and sends you home. The social model says the environment is the problem. The barriers, the assumptions, the lack of belief. That is what disables people, not the person. I lived inside that medical model for a long time. It kept me small, scared, and sad. When I was in the rehab hospital, my physio told me, and I'm quoting, "Oh honey, you're gonna get fat and you're gonna need a bigger wheelchair. You're gonna be on medications forever, and you have so much spasticity that there's no solution for it, so don't even bother trying." They're still telling people this to this day. Now, I've always been rebellious, so when she told me I was gonna get fat, I went and got fit. Thank you. When I came across a spinal cord injury recovery center in California, I knew I had to go check it out. When I arrived there, I saw more people on the street in wheelchairs than I had in my entire life in Edmonton. People working, people living, people having fun. And on my first day at the clinic, my trainer assessed me and she said, and I'm quoting, "Girl, you have so much activation in your legs, I don't know what you're worried about. You're gonna be just fine." Same exact body, two very different futures, depending on who was looking at me. That's the difference between the medical model and the social model, and it can change everything. So what happens when someone actually gets looked at the way that the California trainer looked at me? Let me tell you about Mark. Mark broke his neck in a trampoline park as he had a cervical spine injury. The kind of injury where the medical model has a long list of nevers waiting for you from the moment you wake up. One of those things Mark was told he would never do was be a father. He traveled in from out of town on a weekly basis. He did activity-based therapy for a minimum of 2 hours a day for about 2 years. He dove deep into his neuro-recovery journey with the same principles I told you about earlier: repetition, discomfort, belief. And after 3 years, Mark was able to father a child himself. And now, he's a dad. What a triumph. Yes, that deserves an applause. Now, many times I've been told, "Bean, you're giving out too much hope. Bean, you're going to hurt people by telling them that recovery is possible when it might not be." Well, let me tell you what I've learned. There's no such thing as false hope. You either have hope or you don't. But what there is a lot of is false pessimism. It is loud, it is confident, and it often wears a white coat. It is so powerful that it can take away a person's will to live, and I know because I've witnessed this. Now, did you know that people with spinal cord injuries are often told that their recovery window closes at the 2-year mark post-injury? 24 months to the day is what they're told. Do you know why? Because that's how long most studies run. Not because the body stops, because the funding stops. This is as good as it gets actually means this is as far as we looked. Recovery is not a miracle. It is hard, it is slow, and it is a lifelong journey. It does not end. But the direction should be forward, always forward. And paralysis isn't always physical. Every single person in this room has been paralyzed by something. It could be a trauma that you never faced. It could be just one word that somebody said that got lodged somewhere deep that never quite left. Or could be a script that was written for you before you were even born. And you've been living inside that story, and it's defined you ever since. take a moment for yourselves. Can you think of anything of what that might be for you? So here's what I want to leave you with. Your beliefs can be updated. With repetition, your nervous system can be rewired. I've lived it, I'm still living it, and I've watched many others live it too. The only thing standing between you and that is the decision to stop obeying a ceiling that somebody else built for you. Refuse limitation. Choose potential. I have one last question for all of you. What is it that you will stand for?